Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier, here with you today to talk about some of the breaking news that's been going on today, and I think it's absolutely insane. Obviously, for those who are, not obvious, for those who are not aware, we do long-form political commentary on this site. And I do have to apologize. I am not feeling well. Yes, I did take a COVID test, but most likely it may be that I'm suffering from pneumonia. I've had that before. Didn't kill me then. Don't expect it to kill me now, which may disappoint some individuals out there, but no, probably won't kill me. But if my voice sounds off or if I seem a little tired, that's why. So let's get into this, all right? Because it's been breaking news today. Nancy Pelosi has unveiled legislation, as she has promised, about creating a presidential capacity commission. Now, this is very important, and this is a big deal because many people are speculating this is being directed against President Trump, that this is yet another attempt by the Democratic Party to try and find a way to get rid of President Trump, to take away the presidency, regardless of how the public has voted or how they may vote in the future. This is their get out of jail free card. This is the way they throw President Trump out of office, even though everything they have done so far has completely failed. They failed. Their impeachment failed. Their Russia collusion has failed. Everything has failed massively, and has, in fact, in all of their efforts, they have done nothing but reveal that they are actually responsible for many of the things they try and claim, like collusion was actually done by Hillary Clinton. We have the problems with Ukraine, which happens to be Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. Claims about sexual abuse, which is Joe Biden. All of these different issues that we're seeing, manipulation of mail-in ballots, which we have seen throughout the nation, is a reality that they have tried to downplay over and over and over again. But this is something that's very unique. And I want you to hear, I'm going to try and play this for you. I want you to hear what Nancy Pelosi starts us off with in explaining why this is supposed to be important, according to C-SPAN.
The 25th Amendment to the Constitution was ratified in 1967 after the assassination of President Kennedy, with strong bipartisan support. Members of Congress have a duty to take all necessary action to preserve continuity of government and protect the stability and integrity of our democracy for the future. That is why today, again, it is my honor to welcome Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland, a constitutional scholar, as he introduces legislation to establish a commission on presidential capacity to discharge the duties and the powers and duties of the office.
Okay. This is very important, and I want to go over exactly what she's just said because it's amazing. What does the 25th Amendment actually say? Because a lot of people don't know. A lot of people have never bothered to actually pay attention and find out what does the 25th Amendment actually say. Because she's saying this is important and we need to do this. Article 1, in case of the removal of the president from office or his death or resignation, the vice president shall become president. Pretty straightforward. Kennedy died. We needed the vice president to step up. Obvious. Whenever there is a vacancy in the office of the vice president, the president shall nominate a vice president who shall take office upon confirmation by a majority vote of both houses of Congress. When we saw Johnson move up because Kennedy was dead, someone had to become vice president. Pretty straightforward. We get that. Section 3. Now, this is where it starts getting interesting. Whenever the president transmits to the President Pro Tempore of the Senate, in other words, the majority leader of the Senate, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, his written declaration that he is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, And until he transmits to them a written declaration to the contrary, such powers and duties shall be discharged. Duties shall be discharged by the Vice President as acting president. That may sound a little weird. Really simple. President Reagan was going in for surgery. He gave temporary power of the government to Vice President Bush. There you go. When he got out of surgery and he was deemed okay, he then said, I'm taking back the power. That was the simple transition. That's Section 3. I'm going in for surgery. I'm going to be unconscious. I will not be capable of making decisions. The vice president will be acting as president until I am capable to be able to make those decisions again. It's very simple, very straightforward. We've seen this actually happen before. Section 4 is the part that we see that Nancy Pelosi is trying to make her own mind on. Now, this is very important because Nancy Pelosi knows for a fact that the 25th Amendment was based on the idea that the vice president is going to be acting to take power for the president because the president is incapable of running the country. It is centered around, it is focused on, and requires the vice president to be involved in each and every step. That's just a simple fact. Nancy Pelosi wants to ignore that fact. She doesn't want the American public to pay attention to that fact. She is looking at something completely different, that without regard to the vice president, that we're going to see this go forward. Now, I want to read to you what is Article 4 of the 25th Amendment, or Section 4. Whenever the vice president and a majority of either the principal officers of the executive departments or of such other body as Congress may by law provide, transmit to the President Pro Tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives their written declaration that the President is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, the Vice President shall immediately assume the powers and duties of the office of acting President. We have never, ever seen this take place. This is an unprecedented situation, and it is essentially the vice president, you could say, usurping the power of the presidency. It's never happened before. And is an act by the vice president, and it could be done by Congress if a law exists. But Congress does not have the power to do so just because they want to. There has to be a law that would give them the power to be able to take this action because it's supposed to be the vice president. Now, if the president in this situation under Section 4, if the president transmits to the leader of the Senate and the Speaker of the House his written declaration that no inability exists, that the president is of sound mind, is of good enough health, that they can continue, he shall resume the powers and duties of his office unless the vice president and a majority of either the principal officers of the executive department or such other body as Congress may by law provide transmit within 4 days to the leader of the Senate and the Speaker of the House their written declaration that the president is unable to discharge. What does that all mean? If the president doesn't agree with them, there's going to be a challenge made, and he has the right to challenge it. Now, if they say, oh, we don't think you're of sound mind, you're not fit to be president, the president goes, you're wrong, and he says, give me back my power, they give it back to him. But Congress can, based on this challenge, will go out, they will assemble within 48 hours a session of Congress. They have 21 days of the declaration to assemble and need a 2/3 vote of both houses. That would be the House of Representatives and the Senate to be able to say that the president is not capable of doing their duties, and therefore the vice president would take over. That's what it means. So essentially, what Nancy Pelosi is addressing is she needs to find a way to let Congress, the House of Representatives, and the Senate to be able to go forward and say, hey, the president isn't of sound mind. The vice president has to take over. That's what it says. That's what she's trying to make happen. And very simply, nobody in their right mind agrees with this. Nobody. Because this is stupid. But I will say this. It's not really about President Trump. It's not. And I know they're talking about COVID, but this isn't about COVID. And Nancy Pelosi knows it because guess what, folks? This is a bill from May 1st. Actually, it was submitted on April 6th of 2017. This has been something the Democrats have been trying to get through since the moment President Trump took office. This is a long-term plan. And it was such a bad plan that once it was submitted, it did receive, according to Congress.gov, it did receive 67 Democrats jumped on board and said, hey, they believe in this idea. This is a way that they could take away the presidency from President Trump. Out of these 67 people, there's a name on here you will not see, and that is Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi is not on this list. Nancy Pelosi was in Congress and has been in Congress in 2017. She did not believe in this. She did not support this, but she is supporting it now. That's a big deal. That's a very big deal. So let's try and understand exactly what we're dealing with here. Let's put this into perspective. In May of 2017, 67 Democrats got together and said, hey, we need this group that will allow us to get rid of the president on the basis that the president isn't of sound mind or of sound body, and put the vice president in office. And Nancy Pelosi thought, for many reasons, that's just a dumb idea. And she didn't back it, which is why it went nowhere. It was a dead bill. Didn't do a thing. Now, in 2020, we're seeing that Nancy Pelosi sees an opportunity here and is going for it. Nancy Pelosi in 2020 is now looking at this and saying, this answers the problem that they have and gives them an opening in the future. What do I mean? Because of COVID-19, Nancy Pelosi, who doesn't want to answer this question, believes that this may get, if President Trump is reelected, as most people expect, she can go out and say, well, because of COVID-19 and the medication that the president took, he's not of sound mind. And therefore, with this bill, she can go out and try and get enough people together that hate Trump to get Mike Pence into position. And I guess she believes Mike Pence would be easier to negotiate with, and he will bend more than President Trump. It's a dumb idea, doesn't really work for them, and is unlikely to happen, and will probably cause a massive revolt within Congress and the Senate. But Democrats hope that they will control the Senate as well as the House, both to get this passed, but also be able to enact this as a plan. By the way, remember, this has to be approved by not just the House. It has to go from the House. It has to be approved by the Senate, and then the president has to sign it, or they have to have enough votes to override it, that they would have to be able to override a presidential veto, which is highly unlikely. But there's a benefit here. And I believe that they're looking for this to be set up so that if, in some way, Joe Biden were to win, they have reminded the public of a dead bill that no one cared about. and no one thought was effective. But if Democrats were to control the House and they control the Senate, and we have Joe Biden in office, they could push this through immediately, and that would allow them to set it up so that if Joe Biden takes office, they could immediately put through a panel that will say that Joe Biden is not of sound mind and give the presidency to Kamala Harris. And that's what I think this is about. Because I don't think Joe Biden, of sound mind or not, is going to give up the presidency once he got into office. He wants that power. He wants that position. That's why he's run, what is this, the third time? He wants to be president. He's not going to just give it up. If he's forced out of it, that's another thing. And this allows them to force him out. Now, I do believe that Nancy Pelosi would rather deal with Mike Pence than President Trump. And I do believe that they know Biden is out of his mind. Not because he's a bad person, but the man has dementia. It seems pretty apparent. He has mental facilities that are breaking down. Seems pretty apparent. So what is this all about? This is about Democrats setting up the nation to allow Kamala Harris to take power. That's what that is. This is their backup plan for getting rid of Joe Biden and putting in Kamala Harris, even though no one in the country is voting for her as president, even though the entire Democratic Party rejected Kamala Harris and said they were not even willing to consider her, and why she was one of the first candidates to drop out of the presidential nomination race among Democrats and never got more than 5% of the Democrats to ever support her. She is unliked and just not considered presidential. That's a fact. So I think it's very important to understand what are we really dealing with? Because a lot of people are looking at, well, this is about President Trump, and they're looking at, I want you to understand, this is a failed idea that was so bad that back in 2017, Nancy Pelosi had no faith or confidence in it. None. Nancy Pelosi herself would not back this idea. No one thought it's a good idea, nor did anyone think it was important until today as a backup plan if they could possibly win. And because Democrats don't think that they can handle another 4 years of President Trump, and they need some way to try and get him out if they can maintain power, which I don't see seeing happen. It's basically useless. But, I got to give it to her. She's trying. She's trying to find some story. It gives them the story to say that President Trump is not of sound mind, which might convince one or two Democrats that are on the edge, that don't agree with the progressive politics of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, or realistically Bernie Sanders and Kamala Harris, and get them push over the line. It's something that gives people who are terrified of the idea of putting someone like Joe Biden, who has apparent dementia or mental faculties that are breaking down, and gives them the confidence to say, well, I'm not really voting for Joe Biden. I'm voting for Kamala Harris. So let me vote for her instead because I know Joe can't do the job. So it gives those Democrats some kind of confidence there because they know there's no excitement. There is no enthusiasm in Joe Biden as we watch him fall apart, which I feel sad about. I really do. But this is what I'm seeing from this. And I don't want this to be too long, but I did want to go over this. The 25th Amendment does not give Nancy Pelosi the power that she wants the American people to believe she has. It does not. The 25th Amendment is not meant to be something that's going to be a permanent action. If it was, since 1967 till today, 52 years later, we would have done it. This is meant for something in the most extreme of circumstances to give the nation an option. If we go by what they are looking, what Democrats are intending to do, based on the summary of the bill by Representative Haskin of Maryland, what you're looking at is a group of individuals who may be highly partisan and highly biased that are going to get together and at any point in time and say, hey, we don't like what the president's doing, get rid of them. It's just highly unlikely. It's a bad idea. It is partisanship gone awry. Nancy Pelosi knows it. That's why she herself did not support this bill and is only using it now as a stopgap measure. Well, that's what I think about it. Maybe you think something else. Let me know your thoughts. And I apologize again for my voice, for the interruptions. Again, I think it's probably pneumonia, but I'll be okay. And on Sunday, I will be with you at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time doing our regular show, no matter what. I'm here with you, and I hope you're going to be well. And let me know what your thoughts are, and we'll talk again very soon.